Ladies and gentlemen, welcome another Red Light Live series. Today's a big show, so I want to get started right away. We've got a bunch of you that sent in the video. I appreciate it. Appreciate your support of the channel and also the show for the free education. So if you see your video come up at any point in time, just let me know you're in the chat so I can ask you questions in case I need to. But the whole point of this is to provide a cause and effect. I'm not really going to go into any recommendations on swing changes. What's up, Landry? I'm not going to go into any recommendations on swing changes unless I see something immediate that could benefit you, just because I don't want to lead you down a path that you don't want to go down. Definitely recommend you working with somebody. If you are a fan of the show, you can still keep sending me updates of your video. I'd give you about 2 to 3 weeks in between each session. That way it gives you time to practice on one of the things that I help you out with. But most of this stuff is always stemmed from your setup. A lot of it does have to do with your body mobility, athletic ability as well. But a lot of this is cause and effect from your setup. So let's get started. Landry, thank you for the email too. So Landry's notes, a few things about my swing. I believe I'm having club release issues around P6 to P9. You can really This is you. Yeah. Okay. You can really see the loss of my arm position resulting in a chicken wing. Everything else feels pretty comfortable in the swing. I don't feel like I have enough space for my arms, but at my setup, my arm position feels fine. I must be shifting in some way that's consuming the space for my arms. My misses are a straight slice or a pull. So usually when that occurs, Landry, that is a steepness issue. I'm loving the channel. Okay, I appreciate the support, Landry. I hope does help you about cause and effect. So whenever you have misses that are too extreme lefts, typically when you have a steep motion, you see some pulls work their way in and the big banana balls. And that's the longer the club gets, the more you see that. So you probably don't see as many pulls and moves right with your wedge. You probably get away with a lot more with the wedge. But as that club length gets longer, the misses get longer too. So you probably see a big divergence with your driver and not so big with your wedge. So if that sounds like you, this is probably a steepness issue. So let's go back to the beginning and let's just look at this motion together and see what we see with that club. Yeah, it's a tiny bit steep there. Face on. I don't know. You sent me some irons too, Landry. I want to get this driver taken care of right away because I think just by a couple of setup changes, you can see a big change, specifically right at impact and just past. You mentioned the chicken wing. So one thing I want you guys to remember in the golf swing is there's two targets. There's obviously the target you need to hit to, and the second target is your ball. And that's a huge thing because if you don't pay attention to where your ball position is throughout the swing, you could be thinking about why is my chicken wing like this, and you could be focusing on trying to do some extension drills. But remember, as athletes, and we're all athletes if we play golf, different levels, obviously, but we see the target on the ground, which is the ball. We're going to try and hit it. So unless you correct the positions, you're always going to have a chicken wing because your arms have to be in a chicken wing position to allow you to hit that golf ball. So just right off the bat, we can kind of see some setup things that are a little bit red flaggy for me. We could see that spine angle. I see some of the weighting is too much on the left side, so it's probably 60% left side. And then we have this forward press. Now, the forward press, you probably know my philosophy on forward presses for the average golfer. Excuse me. So whenever you do have this forward press, you have to look at a couple of lines here. So we're going to do one in blue, and we're going to try and eyeball this the best that we can. So let's redraw that green line a little bit longer. Okay, out to here. Now we're going to try and get our tool and see how good we can eyeball 90 degrees from that green line. That's a pretty good eyeball. Okay, so 88. So we can see that's pretty close to 90. So you'll see that golf ball in relation to your shoulder tilt is well off your right shoulder. So two things need to happen. And I've seen people that forward press do it successfully. I'm not saying you can't do it successfully, but as average golfers, it becomes a little more challenging. Option number one is you're going to have to fall back in your swing to get closer to this blue line to bring that ball position back to your right shoulder. That's option one, which is the uncommon option. Now, those that do that have to also get their hands a little bit more involved. Option number two is you split the difference, right? You go from here to there. So that's the difference. So you have to get your center. Why is it still there? You have to get your center to shift in between the difference. Now, the problem with that is, let's look at where your hands are in related to your center of your chest. Now, I know we get too many lines here, but keep up with me here. So we're going to go with the yellow line. So you can see the yellow in relation to you, that ball position is right in the center of your chest. Now we got a forward press as well. So that's going to change your ball position to be further back on your right shoulder. So already we've got a little things to deal with. Now, as you take that club back, you do a good job. I mean, you can see you're connected. You have a nice turn. You get to the top of your swing. It's a little long for my liking because right at the top, you can see that length pulls your upper body a little bit. You could see your lean is now going kind of the wrong way for a driver. You're kind of starting to point down. So now we're going to have a downward attack angle, which is not something that you're looking for in a driver. You actually want to swing up. So now you have to try and reroute that. So now you've got a couple things in play. So as you get down into impact, you can see the center of your chest is trying to find that blue line. And it does a pretty good job right about there. So it finds that blue line. But the problem is now you've taken that ball position and moved it even further on your right side. So now it's shifted back a couple of golf balls. And now what's the one thing to help you hit that golf ball? You could see you're trying to retain that angle. Now, if this golf ball was up over here, you'd have plenty of time to retain that angle and extend out. But because you don't have the time, you look like a strong guy. Your hands are going to say, oh, I've got to hit that golf ball in this small amount of area. So what do I need to do? I need to get going. So your hands, you can see your body kind of stop turning, and your hands are trying to make up for that really quick. Let me get there. Let me get there. Now remember, when your hands extend outward, you need to provide room somewhere. So your left arm needs to break down and pull your hands up to allow that club to release a little bit early. So you do get this chicken wing, but you need that chicken wing, or else if you don't have that chicken wing, you're going to bottom out 3 or 4 inches behind the golf ball, and you're going to crack something. You're going to crack the shaft. You're going to start hurting your wrist, your fingers. So your body doing this to prevent itself. And you can see your hands really get through, but you do a decent job of reconnecting on the way through. So you can see your body's trying to get up. You can see this kind of forward lean that you still got going on. So a couple of things can really address this and help you out right away. I don't even think we have to look at the down the line for this. I think this is going to make more sense for you. Is I wouldn't recommend opening. So let's look at the down line because this will help you for this. So you can see your shoulders. For your hands to get ahead of the golf ball for your press, there's 2 ways to do this. You can either tilt your shoulders to get your hands to press out in front, which is uncommon because that brings your low point behind the golf ball. Or you turn your shoulders, which makes more sense because you can stay tall. But the problem with turning your shoulders is now your path of your hands are going to be out, right? So then you have to either compensate by pulling your hands back, which I do think you do slightly. Yeah, your hands go lower to accommodate that misalignment. So for this forward press, you are turning to get that forward press. You don't need that forward press. In fact, you need to get more weighting behind the ball. So I would encourage you to get the weight, like your center, more back over here so you can get behind the golf ball. And then you can just turn around that. Secondly, you don't need a forward press. So I'm going to try my best to redraw this. Okay. So it's related to your shoulder tilt. So let's say you can level out the shoulder tilt just a little bit, and you can get the center of your chest. Let's just make this longer because we want your center to be a little bit further back. So your center of your chest needs to be here, back to your hands. That's fine. And that golf ball now can shift up inside the left heel. So essentially, you want to level the shoulder. You don't need the forward press. You don't need excess tilt. Just shift your weight so your center is more back behind the golf ball, which now you can just turn. You don't have to like slide back there. Yeah, I hear you, Landry. It comes in, and this has to do with perception when you're setting up. You probably didn't even realize this until I pointed it out. And forward presses come in. I think it's just rubbing off from irons, and it happens. It happens to me quite often. Next thing you know, I'm forward press. I'm like, why? Where did this come from? So it's normal. And that's why it's important to watch these videos and just keep an eye on things to see if things change. So just shift your center nerves a little bit more behind you, get your hands to catch up to that center line, and then put the ball position up. And then you don't really need a lot of this weight distribution because that weight distribution, as you're moving back right, you're starting to move back right and go too far back. And now your tilting is starting to swing down like an iron. And then you have to recorrect that as well. So there's a couple of things purely just on your setup that your body as an athlete is trying to use what you give it, and it's doing a good job, right? But this over the top, steepness and the chicken wing out of necessity is not going to give you the consistency you need. So I think, just without confusing you too much, let's just start real simple, Landry. Do those couple of setup changes, give it a week or so to get used to it. Make sure you have a camera work. So just like you did there, I don't know if you have one of those things you put in the ground where you can put your camera on, but just look at yourself, take a couple swings, go back, always check yourself. You can imagine these lines and just see how you're setting up and make your adjustments. Like every 3 or 4 swings, go back, look at yourself, make the adjustments, go swing again, go back, look at yourself. Just, it's a constant, it's frustrating. And you took a look at the best in the world. What's the first thing they check is where they're aiming, because they make it work to their aim. And secondly, where that ball position is, because aim and ball position are the two biggest fundamentals. Grip, yeah, that's fine. I've seen strong grips, I've seen weak grips make the ball move perfectly. So grip and body motion work hand in hand together. But two things that most people just forget is the two most important things. It's aiming, making sure you're aiming correctly so you don't compensate to get back to the targets, and B, realizing that there's a second target, which is your golf ball, and it has to be relative to your tilting and your motions to make it work. So hope that helps you, Landry. Let me know if you need help. Thanks for the support of the channel. I really appreciate it. Second up, let's clear these lines up. And if you are in the chat, please let me know. I got your notes here. This is a 7-iron. I'm using a men's club right now, but need input on the swing. What am I doing wrong and right? What can I improve upon? Okay, so if I am not mistaken, I believe you're a fairly new golfer within maybe a year or so. So just by that, congratulations. Welcome to golf. Swing looks really solid for that age of a player. I'm curious to know if you have any lessons. Really good body motion, nice and stable. I do think that club might be a little too heavy for you, but you're making it work. But is it just a luck of the draw right now, and will it hinder your motions? That's a tough one. Okay, because I want to make sure you're starting on the right path. Being a brand new golfer, you don't want to develop any bad habits. So let's take a look at that plane work, because it is a slightly longer club. It's going to be a little bit higher. Let's look at your spine angle just to see your back brace line. And let's take a look at the plane work. Wow, look at that. That's solid. That is almost textbook. Beautiful. Good job. Back brace line's looking good. Now the club starts to weigh. So this is where the length of the club and the heaviness of the club could start to cause some issues. So, ideally the club right now should be working a little bit higher, but as it's heavier, it might be dragging down that lower plane line a little too long, and we can see the upper body kind of fall and tip towards the golf ball. So we see that left arm not getting as technically high as it should be based on that setup. But in relation to your tilt, you didn't lose much. You didn't increase your tilt that much. You can see there is your tilting, and your shoulders are doing a pretty good job of maintaining their tilt-turn relationship. So it's looking pretty good there. Arms a little bit low, but let's see what you do to make up for that. Let's draw this triangle, and let's see, based on that triangle, the path that it wants to go through. So it does a good job. Look at that. Stays down that path, gets a slight bit higher here. And when this hand goes higher, the club face does fall below the plane line. Anytime your club is below that plane line, it gets a little hairy, just because, the earth comes in contact quicker when you're below that plane line, not as quick when you're above it. But in terms of your path, it's still pretty good. It's not deviating that much. You're doing a pretty good job. You're maintaining your spine angle, your hips getting to the back brace line. Good rotation, not a lot of release, but that's okay. We can see there's not a lot of release. So the hand is still not quite as active as it possibly needs to be. And I'm not sure if that's because the club is just too heavy, that your body has learned to get more involved. But it's pretty good. Arm escapes nice and high. So your arms do get to the momentum gets them to that secondary plane line more efficiently. Overall, it looks pretty solid. Let's look at the front. So kudos for starting correct. This is really good. Ball position, I can't quite see where your golf club is, but let's draw where that ball position is. We're going to draw this. Obviously, it's manufactured because we're just assuming the club is back there. So that ball position is slightly too far to the right side Let's see how you compensate for that. Okay, good. A little bit of arching going on, a slight little separation. So your hips are bumping towards the target and turning, which is okay. But we can start to see now a little bit of leaning towards the target with the upper body. So ball position, you might be trying to recontour your tilting to match that ball position, because now what essentially you're doing is you're changing your angles, right? So let's say your new tilt is here. What is it doing? Which way is it working? It's working behind to try to find that back ball position. So you might have just figured out through cause and effect or through trials and tribulations that maybe one time your body tilted this much to change that ball position for you relative to your tilting, then you hit the ball better. So a little caution there. If it's working, great, don't change it. But just to keep an eye on things, if you start hitting it very heavy or if you find a release point hard to maintain, you might want to look at straighten that up. Could also help that lower back prevention. A lot of turn here, so this is really good. The club is in a really good position. So typically with players, when we see that much turn, sometimes we see that club getting past parallel to steal some more distance. But this is a really good connected upper body. So really good here. We see that left hip bumping towards the target, so that's fine. Do we straighten out our tilting? Hands are pressing nicely. We don't see a lot of release, which is, you know, common when that ball's in the back if your body's in the right position. I've seen people with the ball in the back that have more upper body strength, mostly guys, fish that ball out with their hands and arms. But because girls are more flexible, they use their flexibility and their body motions to strike their golf ball. So some positives. I mean, look at this triangle. So you're still well connected in front of your triangle. I think you're doing really good. I don't think there's enough to warrant anything for me to recommend. This is for you just to strictly cause and effect. I think what you need to look out for as a potential issue is that ball position and how you adjust your spine at the top to get that ball position. If you start getting lower back tendon, your lower back doesn't feel as good, you might want to think about moving that ball position more so it's in the center. So then you don't have to readjust your spine at the top. So at the top, now your spine can just basically start straightening up here, and not rely on this tilting back to get to that ball position. But other than that, I think you're doing a really good job. And for somebody that's only been playing for a short time as you, really good connection here, a lot of positives. Keep it up. If you don't take lessons, I would highly recommend to take at least one, maybe two, just on some basic fundamentals, and have them look at your ball position and make sure that you are being taken care of with that ball position. But hope that helps you. Let's see who is next. All right, next we have K1. K, I just got K. So hopefully, K, you're watching. Junior golfer, I believe from Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to take a look at this motion. So pretty solid motion. And if you're on the chat, Kay, just let me know in case I need to try and answer or ask some questions just to help things out here. Okay, a little bit of separation. Same sort of thing, though. That ball position is starting to play havoc. Okay, Steven, perfect. Thanks for sending this over, by the way. Let's look at down the line. Okay, so initially some setup issues, Steven, I would look at if this was my student. The feet aren't quite supporting the hips, and she's going to make some adjustments to do that. But let's look at this face on first of all. So right away, we see that ball position a little bit too far back. If we draw a straight line up, you can see it's off the right shoulder. There's no choice but to forward press when it's that far back. It's really hard to get your, to wrist to be like this at the start of your swing. So I would just get that ball position more in the center to level her up. You can see she doesn't have as much tilting. What she's trying to do is match the forward press by getting that left shoulder too far down as it needs to be. As you can see, as she takes that club back, she's trying to get her center. You see that center motion. She's doing a good job turning. If the ball was here, man, that's awesome. But right from this point on, we can see the upper body trying to reach a little bit over. Okay, now you try get that golf ball. So she's moving off the ball, which creates this curvature here. And that could also be the sign, just like that last lady, where we have a spine angle trying to match and meet that golf ball. You can see we draw that longer. So if this is the spine angle, what is this doing? It's trying to get to that golf ball. So this is where that ball position can really hurt somebody's potential. But she's trying her best. You can see she has some motion, gets that lower body to drive, but she can't quite get the weight to the left side, because if she shifts that weight, let's say her centerness is over here, there's really no way for her to hit that golf ball. So she has to get her hands involved, really hands and arms really involved, right at that midway point, right where we see that the club is parallel to the ground. Look at that spacing. I mean, if you just in relation, we're not going to say that we're tour pros, but the tour pro gets their hands on that right leg right at this point. And that's, conservation of angular momentum. But she can't, because that ball position in relation to her hands, that's good. Because if you take a look at where, let's say her ball position started in the center, that's where her right foot would be, her right leg. And that's where her left leg would be. And now we're getting those hands closer to that right side. So she has the motion. She's just like a puzzle. She's kind of all over the place. You just got to tighten her up, and we have to tighten her up on the ball position, that secondary target. Because as from here, now she has to get her hands involved, and we can see if she strikes a golf ball, she does a good job. So she's clearly an athlete. She's got some really good hand-eye coordination, but it's just not as efficient as you would like, because it's just relying too much on the hands and arms and her body now. She has to stay back, right? So we get this huge angle here, lower back. Be very careful with lower backs, even at that age. I can't tell you how many junior golfers around the country within the last 5 to 10 years are starting to blow their lower backs out, is because of what some of these coaches are teaching them. They're trying to teach them this very high, tilt and hold your release and get your body more involved and clear the hips and get down to strike the golf ball. But that's so much pressure on the lower back. And as you develop and as you age, your body's not going to be as limber as it once was, and you put in a lot of pressure on the lower back, and they blow out their lower back, and that's their career. And they develop the swing so much they can't hit the reset button and try and compete. It's just be careful. That's all I'm trying to say here. Down the line, let's take a look at this setup, and let's take a look at. Does this start earlier? Okay, so we'll try our best to get that plane. The plane's probably more like here. So good setup with the upper body. Nice natural arm hang, which is good. The feet are a little bit too close in terms of her weighting. So if we draw from the center of her heels, let's do this. By the way, that's Barney. I keep forgetting to say Barney Purple. So we can see how there's so much area back here that's sticking back. So the center is a little bit too far in the heels. Now let's see how she compensates for that. Okay, club is trying to find that plane line. So she does a good job of staying in that secondary plane line, or that primary plane line, right at that midway point. She gets her hands up nicely. That's good. Let's take a look at what she does as she strikes a golf ball. Yeah, hips are working in. So you see that, Vic? So from this point, look at the center. Look at where that line is on her shorts. That's basically where the center of her hips are. They're not going to turn and hold their position. They're going to work in to get that support. So right there. So now they're being supported by that lower body. And as a result, we start to lose posture. And when you lose posture, the hands naturally work lower. So we see her fighting that plane. We see her getting very below that plane at this point. And now she gets her tilting. So she has to activate tilt to get those hands to move. So she's a very tilty impact player. This shot was straight. The next shot she had was a shank. Impact tape showed hitting the wheel. Yeah. So you just run out of real estate when you do this, and you need a lot of tilting to make this swing work. And tilting is what we don't really want, specifically with that ball position too far back. Because if you have too far back and tilting, not a lot of turn, where's that pressure going? Man, lower right back, and that's not a position you want to be in. So just keep an eye on her ball position and really get it more neutralized, because she has a great motion, good hand-eye coordination. I think you sent me also some. Let's look at this driver. I'm curious with what this driver is. Yeah, you can really see. Look at that centeredness. Okay, it should be back here. The arches of the heels, at least, to allow her. She seems tall, so she probably needs a little bit more. Let's redraw that one. Let's look at this plane work. Yeah, fighting that lower plane. Weight's already shifting forward, standing up slightly to get that turn. So we see a loss of spine angle already. Now she's probably going to turn around that new spine angle. Yeah, same thing. So look at the hips. The hips are crashing inwards to find that centeredness. running out of room, and then we have to tilt to move our hands ahead. And you can see, yeah, she runs out of space. So right at impact, that's almost off the shaft there. So that's just, too much tilting, not enough room, and you coming into it, your path of your hands changes. You start flinging them out because when you stand up, your hands, naturally get flatter when they drop in the slot. So definitely check that setup with the ball position and just work really hard with her on that. If you need help, Steve, let me know. But I think you've watched the channel enough to know what to look for. Sorry, I got to take a sip here. All right. Let's see who's next. I hope that helps you, Kay. Let's see who's next. All right. This is, let me find him, Philip. Now, I don't know if you remember Philip. We took a look at his swing a couple of weeks ago, and Philip can't be on tonight. He's got a family event, but that's okay. Let's take a look at this swing here. Now, for those that don't know, Philip, he's a 1 or 2 handicap, so really good player. And he sent me his numbers, so I want to show you his numbers too, because he said after what we worked on ball position and getting set up correctly, so he responded with, it feels more repeatable, not coming off the ball so much. Good, so he's more centered now. I think I'm still doing a small shift away from the target, which he does. That's fine. I also sent some pictures of my TrackMan because he just wants to be open to any more ideas to get more consistent day in and day out. So let me share this TrackMan. You find it here because these numbers are very peculiar. Okay, hopefully you guys can see this. Let me zoom out a little bit. It's a little bit too, oh man. Okay, we're going to do one by one. All right, so this is his 7-iron. So 7-iron numbers look pretty solid considering the carry. So 175 carry. Let's open this up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so 175 carry, 177 carry. You see the total flight time in the yardages, 186, 190. So these numbers looking really good. What number really stood out to me with these two was spin rate and attack angle. So you look at that attack angle is -0.7, -1.5. Spin rate, 4,300, 4,700. That's closer to the spin rate of like a 3 or 4 iron. So he's not getting a lot of spin. We see that attack angle should be, for somebody in his caliber, -3, -4. That means he's swinging down at it. So we have to look at how can we help him get his spin rate up. But the good thing about him is you take a look at that smash factor, 1.45, 1.42. That's almost unheard of on the tour level. I mean, they're mid-3s with the 7-iron. Some of the really good guys and girls are upper 3. Girls actually have more smash factor than guys because of the club head speed and the angle of attack and all that stuff. So he has like a hybrid. He's got the 4-iron numbers mixed with 7-iron numbers. You got some LPJ stats mixed with PJ stats. So it's a unique issue. So what we're going to look at is why does he bottom out so fast? And you see right here. So there's not a lot of angle here. So it's more just like brushing. So this is what I'm probably going to try and attempt to figure out right now is what's going on. And we still see that slight bit of forward press. I'm not sharing you. Sorry, I gotta share the right screen. That would help, wouldn't it? There we go. Okay, so we still see that slight bit of forward press there. Let me close this. I don't want my computer to blow up, so I need to close some stuff. Yeah, Philip. So I'll still see a slight bit of forward press, but you do make it work, so it's not too disheartening to look at. Nice white turn. As you come on through, though, I think what will really help you get your numbers up is this first move down. Is if you take a look at your upper body, it rights itself, and then you start to tilt a little bit too soon. So here we have a lot of tilting going on, but I think, and hear me out now, we level this tilt out and we shift your body more over the golf ball. Okay, because if you take a look at where the center of your chest is, it's just at that golf ball. Try and shift a little bit sooner. So the top of your swing, and this will really help you become a little bit steeper to help that angle of attack increasing up. So from the top of your swing here, your first move should be more of a miniature slide. I mean, get that upper body to move with the lower body at the same time to shift your ball position slightly back of center. And then what you can also try and work on is try and maintain. So this angle here, I think this is an easy way to explain this. That's the problem with these is you can't really explain it in person. So if you see this angle that you have here, you got this slight lean into the target, right? So the slight lean down. You want to try and carry that angle as long as you can. And maybe even think about increasing that angle as you drive left. And what this will do is it'll steepen you up a little bit, but it's also going to help you move that ball position slightly more back by shifting your weight over, which will then, for you, you don't have to release so soon. You can actually hold on to that release and kind of move into the ball together. So as you strike that golf ball, you would like the shoulders almost the same thing. Feel like that left shoulder slide. Now remember, feel. Don't come back next week and look like this at impact and start saying, man, I'm hitting like crap, because you probably will. But feel like that weight's going more left. Shift your center slightly ahead. So when we're talking maybe a ball ahead, and get that left shoulder to maintain that tilt for a little bit longer. Try not to tilt under so fast. And that should help you with that weight distribution. You might see what the two numbers you're looking for is your spin rate to increase, and then also your attack angle to get higher negative numbers. So if you can get to -2, -3, that's great. But your spin rate's the biggest thing. If we can get that from 45 to 55, 65, and almost eventually get to 7, I think that's going to help you get you more consistent misses on your variance for your distance. So there's two dispersions. There's right and left, which is one way, but the most important one is forward and back. How far do you miss it, long and short? If you can tighten that up, I think it's really going to help you become a more consistent player. Being a 2 handicap, you probably have a really good short game. You could probably get away with a lot because I know you have a family. That's a full-time job in itself. Plus, you sneak in a couple practice rounds and practice sessions. So I know what you're working with. It's hard, but just take this thing, just like we changed your motion slightly. Take this a slight change. Don't all of a sudden lean and lunge, but just feel like you're slowly shifting that weight a little bit sooner. Try not to tilt so much at the golf ball, and just try and maintain that tilt a little bit longer. Feel like this pressure building up on your left leg sooner. You almost want to feel the hips getting some pressure, pressure this side, and then just post up on that left side and see if that helps you. But if I confused you after you watch this rerun, send me an email, because I know sometimes some of the wordings I use can confuse people, some of the lines I draw, but I'm just trying my best out here. I hope that helps you, brother. Let's take a look. Next one up, and this one, let's see if I can find this. Okay, this I was sent by father. Hello, love the channel. Thank you very much. I was hoping to get a breakdown of my daughter's swing. She just turned 13. She worked to improve an over-the-top move, but in the process, the changes I've noticed are a wider and more bent over stance. Now she is hitting more toe heel shots than before. Just wanted to get your thoughts. He believes both of these are 7-irons. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, this is super slow, so we got to do this. Okay, big 4 press, ball position issues again. Ooh, that's a big divot too. So your low point is pretty far back there. She has a good angle retention, which is allowing her to hit this golf ball. So she's able to retain her angle, which is great. Let's see down the line. Yeah. A lot of angle retention, but then also a lot of release too. Okay, let's see the fun again. All right, so let's talk about this setup. Okay, again, everything is relative to this is your target, right? So you have 2 targets. You have the target that you're aiming for and your secondary target, which is the golf ball. Sometimes people overlook this. So there's your shoulder tilting. Hands are doing a decent job of keeping in that centerness. Ball position is definitely too far back based on your center of your spine. Now, obviously, with an iron, you don't want to be on that left side to match it. I understand that. A lot of this does come from your setup. So, let's say you were set up perfectly with the ball position over here, then to allow you to get that natural forward press, you just get the slight lean of your body to get the weighting more 60-40 left side, 65, 70. Some people think it's 80, whatever it is that helps you get a little bit forward press. But you have to now reconnect yourself. So let's just take a look and again, do the 90-degree check from this angle and you're not going to be that far off, which is good. Okay, that's pretty close for 90. So you're just off the right side, which is okay. So it's not that bad. Ball position relative to you. Let's take a look with Barney Purple. I'm going to put that ball position straight up to the sky. So it's definitely in your right side. And we got this forward press. And the forward presses. So there's two things that can happen with the forward presses. You can be a phenomenal athlete and get away with it. And there are some really good tour pros and ball strikers that have a pretty big forward press to make it work. The odds of doing that, though, greatly diminish than doing it natural and letting your body go, or neutral, I should say, and let your body develop around that. So if you take a look at this forward press, what a couple of things can happen, and we talked about it a couple of videos ago. I think the first video is, number one, you're going to close that gap because you have to square these two circles up. And by the circles, I mean, let's just, so we try not to confuse everybody, let's draw this relative. So there is your basically perpendicular. So you have two circles, right? So you have circle one, which is this circle, and then you have circle two, which is this circle. So now in your swing, obviously you keep it relative. So you have two circles. Now the bottoming out of each circle are in two different areas, right? So that's the one issue with forward pressing, is now you've got to time this bottom of the circle precisely in 1 second from start to finish. Now, keep in mind, the top of the swing takes about 70% of your total time. So you've got 0.3 seconds from the top of your swing to now reconnect these two circles every single time. And now that becomes a lot of work. A lot of timing is involved. So you need the certain body structure. You need the body style. You need to have really good fundamentals with your footwork to be centered to accommodate this, because you are going to have to shift your body weight to make up for that. Now, the two ways to do it is to make up that lack of spacing right in the middle. So we're going to draw option one. Option two is to fall back. You remember that 90 degrees. So 90 degrees was about here, right? Option two is to fall back and get your green line closer to that yellow line to make up for the forward press. That's a very rare one to do. Usually it's the yellow line option. Now, when you do that with such a back ball position, by shifting ahead, you're moving your golf ball even further back, which now you either have to flip, but what your daughter does really well is she maintains her angle to allow this to occur. But now she has so much angle retention that she has to release it some way. So you can see she drives that club into the ground, which could potentially injure some wrist down the line. But also there's some clearance room. Sometimes you might shank one out of nowhere. You might rope hook one, because with the amount of wrist angle that you're retaining at one time, if you have any sort of release, you can see how much she releases that club at impact and post impact. That club is already rolled over. Now, it could be from a contact. If she contacted the heel of the club, the toe's going to kick over just by contact. Deflection, face deflection, right? So we have to keep that in mind too. But I would just see a little bit too much motion going on here based on the setup. You can eliminate a lot of that motion based on this. So without having to redraw those lines because the camera shifted, let's take a look and see what option. Let's just draw this one, the centered line, and see if she shifts forward at impact or back. Okay, so she's not shifting forward. She's shifting back. Good angle retention here. So this is why she can get away with this. I mean, she's parallel with the ground almost at the end of her right leg. That's really good retention. So she stores it, she holds it, but her angle of attack is going to be a lot steeper. And you can see, plus the club face might be closed too. You're hooding the club face. It's a really hard position to do that in. That position with the club face, with the grip, that's a somewhat stronger grip than this motion needs. But if you take a look at the release point, look at that club. The club just digs into the ground, and that closure is probably from deflection of the club face meeting the ground, not necessarily her hands, because her hands don't really do much after impact. So you can see how here in this swing, and it's hard to tell, do her hands normally do a lot of stuff, but they couldn't do it that time because of that huge divot that kept her hands open, or does she normally have a wrist release? And if you take a look at this position, we can see past impact. This one, she didn't hit very steep in terms of the divot, but you take a look at that release point. Uh-oh, computer's starting to break down. And again, let's take a look where she makes contact. So this is right off the toe, or excuse me, the heel. So this could be, hey, what's up, Eric? Yeah, glad you can join us, man. So this could be the deflection. It could be the heel making contact with the golf ball and that club face closing from that deflection. So it's really hard. But you take a look at the right hand action, we do see that release right there too. So it's a tough one because I know that she's working with a pro. I'm not sure what she's addressing at the moment, besides the motion of your plane. Now, you keep in mind as children grow, they're going to grow differently from the waist up and the waist down. You know, the amount of ratio that a child's legs grow versus their torso growth is different from 0 to 4. And then they switch roles from like 4 to 8, and then they kind of even out. So during that development process, unless you're aware of the growth rates of the upper body versus the lower body and how that's going to affect your plane, sometimes you just leave them alone and you work on basic fundamentals, grip, alignment, setup, but give them a good neutral grip, give them a good neutral setup in terms of ball position, and just let them develop. You know, so many coaches now I see trying to change path work on a 7-year-old. To me, it's doing the child disservice because at 7, all you really care about is fundamentals and balance and footwork. If you can have good balance, good footwork, and good fundamentals with this modern day equipment, the child's going to develop pretty good. And you don't have to do much other than just keep an eye on them. All of a sudden, if they start picking up the club, okay, yeah, address that pickup. But you have to look at when they pick up, are they able to reroute it consistently? Now, am I taking something away from the child by teaching them now to take it more down the line? Or does it feel natural picking it up and rerouting a la Jim Furyk? I mean, if Jim Furyk had a coach, you know, his dad was a coach, and luckily his dad didn't change much. But if Jim Furyk had a coach that said, no, you got to get perfect, you got to get perfect, we might not have heard of Jim Furyk. So there's, you know, with junior golfers, it's very, very delicate things. I'm the last thing I want to change is path and plane. The first thing I look at is what's causing that path and plane issue. And then we have to look at statistics. Now, I know I reached out to her father and said, how far does she want to take this game? She wants to play, take it as a career. So first stage is high school and then college. Now, just to keep in mind to the odds of being a tour pro. So for the LPGA, it's 1 out of 175,000 is your odds. So in other words, how are you better than 175,000 children? And it's not necessarily swing dynamics, because there's so many kids out there with these funky looking swings that can get the ball in the hole sooner than people with perfect swings. So statistics, I would urge you to take detailed statistics every time she goes out and plays. I have a statistic tracking system that I wrote on Excel. If you want that, email me. I'll give it to you. You basically fill out, I think it's like 40 stats for every hole. And obviously she needs somebody with her to do this, but she can also do it herself. I have students that do it themselves. And once they do it a couple of times, it's pretty easy to fill this thing out. But it'll start to give you a graph of where her misses are. And you can focus on developing those weak areas. Now, you'll know if it's a swing miss or if it's a mental miss or if it's a short game miss, because the statistics take care of that for you. They don't lie. Stats don't lie. And without stats, there's no direction. You can't just, you just work on full swing all the time. You have to find a balance and look at your weaknesses. So I hope that helps you. I hope that gives you some cause and effect that if you need further information, you know how to reach out to me. I'll definitely help you out even more. If you want me to sit with your daughter and talk about her goals, I'll jump on a Zoom call with you and we'll help you out as best as we can. But I know she's working with a pro, but it would be nice to be along this journey with you at some level just to help you out. But kudos for getting her in golf. She's got a great motion. You can see she is an athlete, but she's struggling with what is given to her. And what is given to her is that setup. And that setup, as an athlete, you find any sort of way to hit it. And some people luck out. They just have these funky setups. Give you an example. I played a Golden State Tour event in, I want to say, late 90s, early 2000s. And this guy shows up, and he's a right-handed golfer, grips the club left-handed, aims 40 yards right, and just takes the club way inside, comes over the top, and pulls every golf ball. Guy shot 66, and he putted with a driver. So I'm not saying that you have to fill a mold, but that situation, he got lucky. All his compensations worked for him and the way he thought the swing worked. So you got to be very careful with development. So hope that helps you. Let's see who is next. What time we got? Okay, perfect. This I think is the last one, and this one doesn't have a golf ball, but it's okay. We'll make it work. Now, the only reason I say I would prefer ones with golf balls is because whenever there's a golf ball, you're gonna find a way to hit that golf ball. And when there's no golf ball, you're a little bit more free in your motions. So I do see a lot of hand action going back and through, some slight disconnection right away at the top of the swing. So there could be a potential limitation of your body, but you look young enough. So I don't think that that could be the case. Let's see from, sometimes this does this. It won't let me move it up. So we're stuck at this length. So if that's where you put your ball position, I can see why there might be some disconnection issues. But hopefully you guys can see that disconnection. Oh, that's me. I'm older than I look. I don't want to out you or anything, but you don't look old. So take that as a compliment. Yeah, so there is some slight disconnection. So while I got you on, thanks for joining us. If you can just let me know what your misses are. Like, what do you experience? Do you have two-sided misses? Is it a contact issue? Is it distance issue? Do you miss them right and left, big, small? Just if you can write that down for me while I draw some lines here. Sorry if this is so small. I can't zoom in closer because the more I zoom in, we start losing your feet. Okay, so hands, a little bit more hands on the way back. But that's okay, though. Your body's keeping up with it at least. Okay, so right here, it's a little long. Let's see how we move into it. So we get to that left side pretty good. And then the hands, look at that. Hands are doing pretty good there. So this is one of those cases where I wonder, because if you take a look at where you strike that ground, right? You strike the ground about here. Now, if that's where you started, you would miss that ball. So that's why it's very important to hit something. I don't know if you did hit something. Blocks sometimes with fade, odd pull, but not as bad a miss. Okay. So it's hard because there's no golf ball. I mean, you make contact, the majority of your contact slightly ahead. It could be okay, but we do see a lot of riskiness. I don't know. I mean, this is a pretty good swing. Let's take a look at the down the line one more time. Let's just go over I'm going to do it all Barney purple. So setup's decent. Maybe a little bit spacing between your feet. You don't necessarily lose a lot of tilting, so your tilting's doing pretty good. Yeah, arms are slightly lower. A little bit long and low. But you do a good job of compensating, getting back down to the lower plane line. Gets a slight bit low there. I adjusted my alignment per last. This is from Eric. I adjusted my alignment per last week's analysis and drove it beautifully a few days ago. Ball position further forward and closed up the shoulders, launching it. Man, love to hear that. Isn't it amazing? Like how something so simple can just free you up. It's really a cool thing. And that's why, one of the reasons why I created this channel is I just got being an instructor and having all these students at our academies. And, it's like you just pay attention to the grip alignment, setup, posture, it frees up your motion. And when you start looking at all these, swing philosophies out there and these empty promises of, I know the secret move, and there's no secret move in golf. There's no such thing. There's no one way to swing the golf ball or the golf club. It's all based on your body and your setup. I would say, if anything, if we're being nitpicky here, this little bit at the top of your swing, this little disconnection here, you can see you've already established a lot of your turn. Your body stopped turning. Now, this could be a comfort thing. I don't know if you grew up as a kid and the club was too long and it pulls you back. A la John Daly, he would just get that club as far back as he can with that long club. But that little disconnection, you're going to have to make that up somewhere. So if you drop back down, which you do a good job here, your hands now have to make up right there. And we can see that little flippiness motion there. Now, if your timing is good, you can get away with this. But in order to have good timing, you need to hit a lot of golf balls. So if you're not able to hit a lot of golf balls, this could become a timing issue. Now, your setup, let's just check your setup one more time here. And let's try, that's way too big. All right, so there's your setup here. Okay, not bad. A little before press. Let's see how we use that now. Okay, weight distribution right side. So there is some shifting going on. It's not a direct turn. Yeah. I'd say maybe get a little deeper with your turn. So it does look like you kind of shift instead of just basically getting more turn initially with the hips. And I think that's what's causing you to get that club further back. Because if you see your shoulders, basically your hips have stopped turning here, but your arms are pulling your shoulders back open. Um, so if you can stay in this connected motion, you're doing really good here, right? So there's your hands in front of your chest. So if you can get a little bit deeper turn with the hips, it'll pull your shoulders to turn with them. And, think about the inside of the circle doesn't have to turn that much to affect the outside. So if you can just turn them, let's say 15 degrees more, your arms now can be more connected. Let's say that brings your shoulders to here. At least your arms can be up over in this area, even if they get to the right shoulder. And then your club can just sit naturally right there. So that's a horrible drawing, but that's the club. But you see how you get your arms to disconnect more, but also you start hinging the club even more. So now you're not as wide with your lower body, but that club's moved so much further back than it needs to be. Remember, like I said a couple of sessions ago, width always beats length, right? So that creates power. As you come on down through, you're going to have to make up that spacing at some point. You do a good job of holding the angle, but without a golf ball there, it's hard to just see when do you flip because of your motions. You do tend to move left, which moves your ball position back, plus that forward press. So I would encourage you, if you can, CN, if you can, just resend me something and hit something. It doesn't even have to be it could be a tennis ball. Just hit something that you can go and I see you live next to a school. Don't don't hit it in the school, but hit something so you have a target, because you can get away and you can look awesome, but without a golf ball, it's hard to diagnose. Right off the bat, I just think you get a little more deeper turn with the hips. It help you stay more connected. More connection means that you are now able to be in a position more frequently because you have the width. Your arms more connected to your chest. Your hands, your club face is more connected to your chest. So when things are connected to the chest, your arms and hands don't have to get so, flippy at impact and move around a lot, which can cause both-sided misses unless you hit a ton of golf balls. So I hope that helps you. Thanks, Tony. It sounds like your respiratory infection is better. It is. A couple of weeks, it's been kind of up and down. I feel it coming back, which is not a good sign. So I've been hitting that vitamin C quite often. So I hope it does just kind of go away on its own. He's been hitting the chamomile tea, more like the brandy, the late night brandy. But that should work too. So hope that helps you guys. I know we had quite a bit of people to get through, so I hope it didn't breeze past anybody too fast. But if you need some more information, just go ahead and send me an email. You guys all know my email. Ask me questions in the comments below in the video. Ask me questions. But thanks a lot for supporting this channel. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we're starting to get a little community here that just likes to learn about the golf swing, because there's just so many things out there that you don't really know. And I'm not saying that this is the answer, but at least it gives you some solid foundations to work on and learn why your swing is the way it is. And it's always just because of what you give it. It's not, your potential is what you give yourself to work with. So if you give yourself a better potential, you can reach that potential. Hope that helps you. I will get going on some videos this week. But other than that, I might do another golf tech video. That was pretty popular. I enjoy doing those. But other than that, I will see you guys. Thanks again for supporting the channel. Have a good night.